Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today I'm looking at the Helbrutes, the unit that went down to 130 points for all chaos factions basically. So let's take a look if it's now worth it. So today, the 20th of May, back from a vacation in Greece where we celebrated Easter, and as I said in this video, looking at the Helbrute reduced to 130 points for all Chaos Marine armies. So we're looking at the background and the lore of the Helbrutes, then looking at the datasheets, the weapon options. It has a lot of weapon options to try to analyze here. Then I'll be looking at the damage output, durability, and overall per point comparison as I'm used to. So the Helbrute's background and the lore. Basically, the Helbrutes are the chaos equivalent to a dreadnought. So a critically injured heretic Astartes warrior. He lives within the metal plates of the Helbrute, critically injured in some battle and couldn't survive. Then they put him inside this this nice new living metal thing, and it's basically a nightmarish fate, and they become psychotic and insane according to the lore. And the Helbrutes are kept in chains when not in combat. They are unleashed to their unsuspecting foe. Also in the Lord of Silence, I remember, it seems like they were keeping a Helbrute chained in the hull of the vessel, and then it was awakened to feed and to attack the enemy. If we look then at the datasheet of the Death Card Helbrute, now of course they are 130 points to the latest balanced data slate, and we see it's a vehicle with it's only having a 6-inch move. It has a toughness 9. It has an ice save of 2+, 8 wounds, not very much for a vehicle type of unit, leadership 6+, and objective control 3. It has a large variety of weapons, as we will see later on, a lot of shooting weapons and a lot of melee options that it configure on its both arms. And it has an interesting ability for Death Guard infused with the Blessings of Nurgle, which means that if it shoots a unit, after shooting, it can select a unit it hit, and then that unit is counted as being within contagion range. So in this case, if we select also, for example, -1 save, it could be an interesting way for other shooting units to maximize their effect, the target being in -1 toughness, -1 save, for example. For Death Card, it also has a second ability, the Enraged Impact, where when it charges, you can deal some extra mortal wounds here. So interestingly, these abilities don't go hand in hand very well, because one of them you would like to probably be on the far away and spread the contagion. The other one you need to come close and charge to do the mortal wounds. A quick look at the differences from the data sheets for the other Helbrutes. For example, for Thousand Suns, the Helbrute has a 5+ invulnerable save. All of them are 130 points, and it's having Inferno pattern bolters, so more AP for the Thousand Sun bolters. And the ability there also has a nice synergy with the Thousand Suns Cabal point system. So every time, if a Psyker is within 9 inches of the Helbrute, every time they do a ritual, you can gain 1 Cabal point. So that's quite nice. I think that's a good ability, because normally for Thousand Suns, if you have units that don't help you with the Cabal points, you typically end up not taking them. You want to have your Rubrics and Scarp Terminators and a lot of Sorcerers. And here the Helbrute's ability is also could be helpful, gaining a bit more Cabal points. For Word Eaters, the ability is the Frenzy. So every time the Helbrute is selected to be shot against or fought against, after the unit is finished shooting or fighting, then the Helbrute can shoot back or fight back. So that's a deterrent to be shot at by some light stuff, for example. So that's quite interesting for World Eaters. And for Chaos Space Marines, it also has an aura that goes well with the Pact, the faction ability. So if you are within 6 inches of the Helbrute when you do the Pact, you can gain both abilities, the sustained hits and the lethal hits when you're doing the Pacts. Now, I mentioned before that there was a lot of weapons to select from, and here trying to illustrate the Helbrute's weapon options. So here we see a configuration where it has the twin las cannon and the missile launcher. If we look at the missile launcher, this can be substituted by either you have the missile launcher one arm, or you have melee weapons like the fist, the hammer, and the power scourge. The fist can have some extra weapon. It can be equipped with a combi bolter or a heavy flamer. Heavy flamer is quite interesting, also giving the ability to overwatch effectively. If they get dual fist, they get the twin linked. And if we look at the other arm, here we have even more possibilities, and most of them are shooting options here. So we have the multi-melta, then we have the plasma cannon, twin autocannon, twin heavy bolter, which it can vary from codex to codex or index to index, and then the twin las cannon and a Helbrute fist. So in this busy table, I'm analyzing all the weapons that the Helbrute has access to and the damage output. The numbers in the table give you the expected average damage output of a weapon firing at a selected target that I'm typically simulated from guardsmen and termagants up to a big Imperial Knight or a Land Raider and Terminators and so on. The commas are decimal points. And first, let's start with a missile. Either we have the crack or the frag missile that you can select from the profiles, but the damage is quite low, as you can see. Even with a crack missile, you might be doing half a wound on a Land Raider or something like this. Basically, it's a lot of times you will not be doing any substantial damage. You can't even expect to kill a Terminator or an Intercessor on average, and the frag missile can kill maybe a guardsman or something like that. So quite lackluster missile launcher here. And then we have all the shooty weapons that are competing, let's say, with the multi-melta. We have the multi-melta at 18-inch and 9-inch, where the melta ability kicks in. It's good when you are at close range at 9-inch, like we saw from the Mephitic Blightholder, but at longer range, 18 inches or 24, you can shoot. At 18 inches, you're not doing so much damage. Let's say 2 wounds on a rhino, maybe 1 intercessor killed with a multi-melta. If you come close by, you can be doing 2-3 wounds on vehicles at 9-inch. Then we have, let's say, the twin las cannon. Maybe I should talk about it. It only has 1 shot, but it's twin linked. You can reroll, and it can do some damage versus the vehicles. Not as good as a melta at 9-inch, but with this case, you can be standing at 48 inches and doing the las cannon shot. The heavy bolter is quite good against infantry with sustained hits. For death card, it's also lethal hits. For the 1000 sounds, it would be AP -2 here, but some okay damage against intercessors from 36-inch range. And then if we look at the weapons that are best versus the Terminators, let's say it's the plasma cannon on the twin autocannon. The plasma cannon seems a bit better than the autocannon. Only having an AP -1 is not very strong here. If we look at the melee weapons, then basically from the close combat weapon, where you only have the shooting weapons on, and then going to the fist or twin link fist, the power scourge, and the Helbrute hammer. Unfortunately, previously the power scourge would give you extra attacks. Now you have to select the impact. So if we look at the melee weapon damage output, then the fist overall the better weapon, because you can add the heavy flamer on top. The hammer could be interesting against vehicles, but it's not so good against infantry. And if we compare the options for the fist, the combi bolter or the heavy flamer is the better option here. And with such a high variety of weapons, there is also a lot of configurations, and trying to illustrate some points here. So here I'm looking at the damage, the various configurations we do if they would shoot at 12 inches and then charge in and do the melee damage output. And here you can see, for example, if we only take the shooting options, I summarize in the further left column here. You see the average damage versus all the targets I'm simulating here, and we see with the missile and heavy bolter and las cannon and so on, you can get 2.5 wounds on average across all the targets. The twin heavy bolter is better versus infantry, and the twin las cannon is better versus vehicles. You see the Helbrute, the missile and the melta is not so strong here. And if we add the the melee weapons, if you can get into range, the melee damage output is higher than the shooting damage output. For example, if we take the missile with the fist, we'll be doing 5 wounds on average, shooting, charging, and doing the melee damage. Twin las cannon and the flamer could be interesting. The twin fist and the 2 flamers does the highest damage overall in this comparison. At 12 inches, of course, you have 2 flamers, and then you come in with a twin linked fist. And you could have an interesting combination for anti-vehicle. It could be a twin las cannon and a hammer, the strongest weapons. However, if you look at all these figures, all in all, the damage is not very high. So it's a bit, you even shooting and charging with a twin las cannon and hammer, you would be doing, let's say, 8 wounds on a rhino. You can't expect to take out a rhino with this combination. Now, if we turn to the Helbrute's durability, this table shows you how many weapons from various weapons shooting at the Helbrute or attacking the Helbrute would be needed to take it out. And this is a not point corrected table. This is just the numbers that are needed. For example, 86 bolt rifles would take out Helbrute, or 21 plague spewers, or 12 power fists, or let's say 2 despoiler Gatling cannons would take out your Helbrute on average. And we see here the Helbrutes for Death Guard, Chaos Space Marines, and World Eaters. And then we see the 1000 Suns that has a 5+ symbol save. That helps it a bit against AP-4 weapons. But if we compare, let's say, the average number of shots from all these weapons here, it would take 15 to take out a Helbrute. And if we compare, let's say, to a War Dog or a Predator or a Plaguebear Scroller or a Land Raider or something like that, you see the damage out. They can tank less shots. It suffers from having only 8 wounds compared to a War Dog that has 12 wounds, or a Predator with 11 wounds. The 2+ save helps it against the light fire, but yeah, the 8 wounds is not very high for being a vehicle. And thinking then about what could be some uses for example, for Death Guard. I mean, it's a bit the abilities, as I said, are not very well working together. Let's say on the one hand, the Helbrute has a charge mortal wound ability. It can also do the tank shock decently with a strength 12 fist or the strength 14 hammer. So if we take the fist, for example, a tank shock would give us, expecting that we are attacking a target with less toughness than 12, and with a contagion, of course, being close by, the tank shock would be expected to do 4.7 mortal wounds, the stratagem, and we add 1.7 mortal wounds on top. That will be 6 mortal wounds on the charge, 6.4. With a hammer, we get more on the tank shock, so 7 mortal wounds here, so for 1 command point. So that's quite good. And if you want to use that ability, charging, doing mortal wounds, having a unit that can do a tank shock, then the Twin Fist with the Flamers is a nice configuration, as we saw, or for example the Las Cannon and the Hammer, which more of an anti-vehicle specialist. The big question, of course, will it survive long enough up the field, moving 6 inches, to be able to come into melee so that it can use its damage and these abilities. On the other hand, as we saw, the maybe even more interesting ability, it can spread contagion from the distance. It just needs to hit, and you can select, and the enemy would be in -1 toughness. And if you, for example, select the -1 save, that would benefit the other shooting units. In this configuration, I think it's important to have a lot of shots. So there you would probably keep the missile and use the frag, let's say, if you just need to hit. And the Twin Heavy Bolter gives you 3 shots. If you take the last cannon, you have 1 shot, and you might miss that. So it's better to just hit with, let's say, with the Helbrute. But it will be highly situational if it will come into play and how efficient it would be. On a table to the right here, I've done a theoretical scenario here where we have a Plaguebear Scroller shooting at 24-inch at a target with line of sight. It would be do 4.5 wounds on average, not point corrected. It's 2.5 wounds per 100 points. If the target was put in -1 save contagion here, for example, by a Helbrute shooting, or if you have another unit close by, like a 30 blow drone or something like that, you will be doing 6.1 wounds. This means that if the enemy is in contagion and -1 save, you would do 1.6 wounds extra if you want one playground scroller. And if we just assume that you paid 130 points for the Helbrute to just add that, you are not adding sufficient damage that it makes sense to spend the 130 points. It would be better just to add some more playground scroller in this respect. If we can benefit more and more units that are shooting at the target, of course, at some point, for example, if we have 3 playground scrollers, we are getting 4.7 extra wounds, and then the Helbrute not doing anything else, just pointing on the target and giving it contagion. It gives sufficient point. It pays its back, but as I said, highly situational if this turns up. Finally, we end up at the summary table with the overall per point comparison of various Helbrutes and compared to some other units that Chaos armies have access to. So here we see the damage versus infantry, damage versus vehicles at different range. All of this is now point corrected to 100 points, and we see the durability point corrected to 100 points. The light weapons is compared to an intercessor. The heavy weapons index is compared to a predator. And we can see the Helbrute, not very high damage output. If we really need high damage output shooting, then for example the Brigand or the Predators are giving us much more damage output per point compared to the Helbrute. And if we want, let's say, to do melee, even the melee damage, which is quite high, 3.8 wounds versus vehicles, for example, with dual fist with flamers, but then the Carnivore just does it much better. The Wardog Carnivore here. And on top of this, the durability, as we can see, versus heavy weaponry, it has a lower index than the Predator, which is, let's say, the index 100. So it suffers from durability. It has a lackluster damage output, and on top of all of this, it's only a 6-inch move, while you have some of the other units are faster. They can get more into position. If you want to have something going into melee, the Carnivore will do it better. And that for Death Guard, you have, of course, the Plaguebearer Scroller, which has a better long-range shooting, and you have, for example, the 30 Bloaton with the Flesh Mower, or that is faster and maybe can spread the contagion without having to shoot at the thing. Reaching to the summary and final thoughts, the Helbrutes at 130 points are unfortunately not a very competitive unit compared to other options that all Chaos armies have access to, such as War Dogs that can be allied from the Chaos Knights, or Predators, tanks, etc. As we summarized, the damage is quite lackluster, the durability is lower than other vehicles, and on top of all of this, the speed is slow with only 6 inches. On the rule writing, I think all their abilities are quite nice, and it's nice to see that they have abilities that synergize well with affection abilities for Death Guard, Thousand Suns, and Chaos Space Marines, but it's not enough to warrant them a spot in competitive lists. Probably you have better options that also give you some nice synergies and have better damage output, speed, and durability. If you like the models, lore-wise they are interesting, of course, like a fallen hero in a nightmarish shell, being enraged and frenzied on the battlefield. It can be interesting to field. You have a nice configuration, you have interesting weapons. So for casual play, it could be an interesting unit, but don't expect it to wipe out enemy stuff easily. So what could be done, let's say, to improve this? Of course, it could be a further point decrease, maybe bringing it down to 110 points, 100 points, something like that. Maybe allow for more free choice of the shooting weapons on both arms. So you could have, let's say, twin heavy bolters on both arms, maybe, or something like that. Could we give them -1 to incoming damage, like, for example, Redemptor Dreadnoughts or other Dreadnoughts, to increase their survivability? They could be slow, more lackluster damage, but if the durability is high, they could be quite threatening. But as they stand right now, I can't see them really used in competitive lists. So this concludes this video. What do you think about the Helbrutes? What do you think about this analysis? Please let me know in your comments if you have some experience from competitive play of Helbrutes. Anything maybe I missed will be interesting to hear. And as always, I'm really happy to read all your comments. Please post some comments for this video, or if you want to have a suggestion for another topic for me to cover, or Mathhammer. And as always, very special thanks to my patrons and YouTube supporters. So with these words, GeneralJannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.